Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so our agenda today will be going over the webinar reminders as usual. We'll do the announcements. Um, the training today, we're just going to be reviewing our reporting FAQs. And then at the end, we'll go ahead and talk about the website update and then take a look at our new website. Um, reminders, again, share any relevant information with the appropriate staff at your agency. Ask questions using the Q&A function. Um, and then attendance is collected by survey, which will pop up at the end of the webinar. And then the webinar recording and notes will be sent out Monday, April 6th. And then for users who missed the webinar, Friday, April 10th, would be the deadline to complete the video and quiz. Um, and so our announcements, we're going to do or sorry, one announcement would be the LSA and SPMs were successfully submitted to HUD. Um, and well, the vendor transition to Green River is moving along. We'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. And then the retirement of gender and translation assistance, we'll go over that a little bit more as well. And then, as I said earlier, we'll take a look at our new HMIS Help Desk website. Okay, sorry. Um, let me just pause the sharing real quick. Sorry, guys.
And well, Stephanie is just fixing the PowerPoint. The next slide was about vendor transition. So I'll cover that a little bit just as she's working on that. So just for context, if everyone's not aware, all three of these in the state of Arizona, Maricopa, Balance of State, as well as Pima, each one of those COC boards approved the transition away from WellSky as a vendor to a new vendor, tentatively Green River. So Green River is the same vendor that works on Dwell, if you're familiar with Dwell. But the idea is uh, within the next year, we'll no longer be using the current software community services with WellSky, but be using a new one called OpenPath with the vendor, which their name is Green River. So that has been voted on and approved by all three of COCs. So every time we have an AAW, we'll cover that in a little more detail to see where we are in that process. So right now, all three of COCs are working with Green River to finalize contracting and pricing. And there's a myriad of reasons that the transition was approved and decided on. But the first immediate step right now is making sure that those contracts are signed and the pricing has been finalized. So that's still in the works. Green River is still going to go and meet with us tentatively before the contracts are signed on some things here or there. But the next biggest step is really signing those contracts. That being said, there's still a tentative timeline for transition from our current software to Green River, and that would be like early fall for Maricopa, and it'd be staggered. So again, this does include all three COCs, Maricopa, Balance of State, as well as Pima. So Maricopa would be going first in the early fall. Balance of State would then transition afterwards in the late fall, and then Pima would also be transitioning either in the late fall or early winter. So that's our tentative timeline. Um, we're involved in those meetings to understand exactly what technical issues and things and changes need to happen. So as you can imagine, this is going to be a pretty big lift for the community. There's going to be all sorts of new trainings, new workflows, rebuilding reporting. And so we'll just make sure that we touch base on the vendor update every time we have an AAW. We'll also touch base on it in various other ways as well. But right now, it's just getting those contracts settled and finalized. But if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll do our best to address them at the end. But that's where the transition is right now. Uh, so for the data will transfer over to the new system. So anything HUD related will transfer for the new system. There's still a lot of discussions to be had about exactly what specific custom workflows, custom data elements would transfer as well. But the HMIS team would be reaching out to agencies individually to have those conversations to see what is and is not important to transfer over to the new vendor. So that is an excellent question. But the vendor itself wants to transfer as much data as possible. And it really is going to come down to the discussions we have with agencies and what they're interested in. Yes, and everyone will be able to see the new system before I start using it. I would desperately hope so because it's going to be just an absolute tragedy if everyone's first day using the system is the first day they have access to it. So, but again, the details in that are pretty slim. We just don't know exactly what it looks like yet. We just know that the transition is being planned, and we're really in the phase of finalizing contracts.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so we'll go to the next topic.
So the next topic is updates to the UDEs. So in both Balance Estate as well as Maricopa County, two data elements for retired gender, which we'll touch base on here more specifically, as well as translation assistance. So this was retired. We did receive some questions, or the COC lead, Matt, received some questions about this. So we just wanted to review that in case there was any concerns or questions about the retirement of those data elements. So gender was officially retired by HUD as of the fiscal year 2026 data standards that came out in October. And at that point, they're just no longer a data element that is collected. It's no longer sent for federal reporting. It's no longer the PIT, HIC, SPMs, or anything of that sort. If you go on the COC APR, any reports that are federally required or specified, I should say, gender you will no longer see on those reports. So that's ultimately the reason that we decided to align our assessments with that 2026 data standards. In place of it, sex was implemented, and that's the new field that we'll be going ahead and working on or using going forward. Now, to retire gender, that wasn't just a willy-nilly decision by the HMIS team. So this was a community-wide assessment, the UDE. So anytime there's changes to the UDE assessment, whether it's in Balance State or Maricopa County, we do actually bring it up through various bodies for approval. So we've had people submit tickets to the help desk before saying, hey, I would love to have, the person's favorite color, on the UDE assessment. And we take that seriously. Obviously, that's sort of a joke question there, but we do get requests to add things to the UDE assessment. And it's not really our determination, it is the community's determination. The way gender was decided to be officially retired on top to actually, so we could have just said as a community, all right, HUD retiring gender, we don't care. We're going to keep it on our assessment anyways. Let's do that because we value having this information on that assessment. So to have those conversations, we brought it to, in Maricopa, the HMIS and Data Systems Coordination Committee, which is a very long name, and in Balance Estate, the HMIS Committee. So those are the committees that look at HMIS related stuff. They look at data requests, new agencies, and requests about changing data element collection within the system. Both of those committees in Balance Estate and Maricopa County did recommend removing gender as well as translation assistance from the UDE. That recommendation was taken to the COC board for both continuums, and the COC board in both continuums did go ahead and say, agree with the recommendation that we should remove those data elements from the UDE assessment. The decision was ultimately made with the idea of client protection in mind. So there were some concerns that the data, gender data specifically, would be used not for care coordination in terms of home services, but could be used for other purposes that were not well-intentioned for clients. And I think that is what really drove the decision for all those committees as well as the COC boards. With that, the historical data does exist, of course. So we still have reports in SAP, while the COC APR, for example, and those other federal reports no longer report on gender. We have a host of other reports in SAP that do report on gender, and those data elements are still available. That data is not lost. It's just no longer on the UDE assessment. So it's not, the underlying data is not deleted. It's just no longer on that globally shared assessment. And if you have any additional questions, you can, of course, reach out to us. You can also reach out to the COC lead. And for some questions, we might direct you to the COC lead, and they'd have more information about thought process behind retiring gender, the approvals within the various committees, as well as the COC board. When I refer to COC lead, I'm referring to MAG in Maricopa County and ADO in Balance Estate. Um, let's see here.
I have a
E
question about the forms. It says, will the paper forms be updated to match HMIS? And they will
yes.
be, yes. But there's a little delay in getting them on our website, so the soonest would be early next week. But we can also send them out with the notes as well. Well, I don't know all the forms, but
Yeah, yeah. We have the updated forms, so if you want those earlier, as you can see, as we mentioned, other websites being updated, so our marketing communication team opted to just wait on updating the actual links for the forms. But if you submit a ticket, we can just send those updated forms to you, as of today. Otherwise, the website will be updated in the next week. Let's see here. So I'm going too quickly for questions. Okay, I see a question about the UDE demographics entry exit report. Uh, I would submit a ticket for that, for updating that particular report to include sex. It should, but I would submit a ticket just for tracking purposes. I'm not sure exactly what method the BA team used to decide which reports to update proactively or not. Yes, this is a system that did pass all of the requirements for a HUD approved system. HUD actually released a list in the past month or two, which they haven't done before, of systems that have passed all of the reporting qualifications. Green River's newer on the data entry side, but they've actually been providing the warehouse and federal reporting for a number of years for various communities throughout the country. So there are situations where a community might go ahead and use WellSky for data entry, but opted to use Green River for their federal reporting as being a more reliable sort of partner and making sure reports are updated on time and so forth. Um, and then we also know one here, questions for the FAQ section. Will agencies need to complete a new training to get their HMI certification in Green River? Will be a transfer of users into the new site? These are excellent questions, and I do not have the answers for all those. I suspect that we will require training of some sort for new users in the new system because otherwise it will be the Wild West of not knowing what to do. So that will have to be staggered and done quite in advance, but new training would be required because I think a lot of people will be at a loss otherwise. And we would go ahead and work with agencies to determine which new users would transfer over. We have a shockingly high rate of turnover. It's probably not that shocking actually for everybody who actually works, day to day in the field. But there is a huge turnover rate. And so I imagine that if we ask 2 months ahead of time, that list could be totally different on the actual day of the transition. So. For this new system, these are excellent questions, and I am really glad that there's a lot of people interested in this. Yes, the system will integrate all three COCs. So it would be at this time, a shared implementation or shared database. So if you're a user who currently logs into the separate databases, one for Maricopa County, one for PIMA, one for BOS, or just PIMA and BOS, this would resolve that multiple login issue, and it would be a shared implementation. Now, that being said, we would still have various visibility and data sharing rules that accounts for each COC's preferences. So the shared database doesn't necessarily mean that everything is shared willy-nilly. There are still differences in privacy notices and ROI expectations for each continuum, and that's going to be a big part of the conversation in the next couple of months.
okay, so reporting FAQs. So, um, all the information I am going to be sharing here is located or can be found on our HMIS All Programs Reporting Guide. The guide is on our website, on the training page, and it's under the SAP Business Objects Reports, training section. So the first question is, how can I review the completeness of PDE and UDE elements as well as exit destinations? Sorry. Um, Okay. So to review that information, you would go ahead and use the 0252 data completeness report. So that's the report name. And then we also have where the reports are located. Again, this is found on the reporting guide that we have. And then it gives a reasoning or goal as to or for the report. So here it says it's a complete and accurate, or sorry, complete and accurate data is better representative of the client situation and can provide them with more opportunities for obtaining help. COC policy requires programs to have 95% completeness. There are two variations of this report, one with the client's names and one without. And down here is just a screenshot or a picture of like what the report looks like and how it is presented to you all. So again, it reports on the UDE, Universal Data Elements, the PDE, and then the HUD verifications, and let you know if that information has been completed. So another question is, how can I see the percentage of clients that are hardest to serve and or the number of clients served by my program? So again, the report you would use would be the UDE demographics report, the general use one, and again, the locations for Balance of State and Maricopa are on our reporting guide. And then so it says here, it is critical that we know potential barriers for someone successfully getting out of homelessness. It is helpful to be aware of which individuals are hardest to serve so that we can better counter or cater our program to them and help them find more appropriate resources. So again, this report breaks down or reports on everything on the UDE. So the veteran status, homelessness primary reason, just to name a few, but everything on the UDE is reported on this report as the report says. Um, I don't know. There was a question about the UDE um, having the new data element sex on there. I don't know if it would, because technically it's not a UDE. It's on like the client profile, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a PDE. I think we'll end up including sex as part of the UDE monitoring anyways, just because that'll probably be a demographic that's pretty relevant for reporting, but it is technically sex at PDE, even though most programs will collect it.
Okay. So yeah, this is just a really helpful guide that we wanted to highlight, let you know what's out there is one of the resources you can use. So again, go ahead and check this out on our website. It gives other examples of other types of different data quality, emergency shelter, street outreach reports. So again, very, very helpful tool. Don't see any questions regarding the reports and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and move on because we have questions about other things.
So I do see a question about the dwell, and I will circle back to that at the end. That's an excellent question. But the one thing that we'll do right now is I'm just going to go ahead and share our new website, which went live today, which caused us a bit of panic because I was caught off foot by the timing. Let's see here. So I'll show you the website. It's basically the same functionality and same options and drop downs, but it just looks a bit different. But we'll share that here if I can figure out how to share. Yes, I can. All right. So you should be seeing a website that says Inspiring Hope with a rather happy someone from Solari actually. So I think everyone who's actually on the website is from Solari staff and employees, which is kind of neat. But this is a new homepage. Below just provides some more information about HMIS itself. A lot of this information is the same as before, but with a new look. So um, to submit a ticket, we still have the submit a ticket page. This looks pretty familiar. So once again, if you submit a ticket, this is exactly the same link. So this is very familiar. But if you have an old link that's not working, if you haven't saved in a toolbar or as a favorite and it's not working, it's because this website has been updated. The real change here is that there's just an extra HMIS. So it used to be just slash submit a ticket, but now it's going to be slash HMIS slash submit a ticket. So, but otherwise the format is the same. It's just a different look. So we still have all the same forms for requests, um, other questions, links to virtual training. So functionally it's the same. It's just a matter of appearance. We still have two training options here, the live virtual training as well as recorded training materials. The live virtual will go to the Eventbrite page we have, which this is the same as before. Whereas the recorded trainings and materials is a new look as well, but functionally the same. So we still have links for all the different training types for the balance of state and Maricopa LMSs. And here is a SAP Business Objects Reports training. So these are the guides that Stephanie was referring to. So we have an all programs reporting guide. We have a CE reporting guide. So specifically, if you want to learn about what reports might be useful for entry points, it identifies the report, the locations, and sort of what it does. We have ones for returns to homelessness, scheduling your first SAP Business Objects Report if you're not familiar with that process. So it's a good resource. We're trying to build this up more and more over time, but if we see more people use these, that would be fantastic. And then again, our policies and forms, same information, just another look. So this is where our data entry paper forms are. These will be updated in the next week, as Stephanie mentioned earlier. And then we also have those privacy policies as well. Again, the exact same information. The layout is just different is all. And then we also have our dashboards and reports page. These are the same dashboards and reports that we've had before, but it is a lot cleaner than before. Previously, you had to scroll down for half a mile before you got to some of the reports. So this is bucketed in a little more convenient way. But we have all sorts of cool things. So if you're not familiar with all these reports, it's pretty nifty. So for example, the system flow dashboard, if you're not familiar with it, this just shows the number of clients identified as homeless each month in Maricopa County. And you can see it all the way back to 2018. You can see it broken down by subpopulations as well. So a nifty tool that a lot of people may not be aware of. Balance of State has that exact same thing, just for the balance of state continuum instead. And again, you can look at the number of clients who are identified as homeless over time. And in balance of state, you can also break it down by county as well. So you can see not just the entire continuum, but specifically your county as well. So another little nifty resource there. But that is the website itself. And we just want to share that. So if you have any issues with the website, we'll be sending out a mass email with the new updated link. If you go on the homepage of your community services portal there, or your login, on the homepage, I'll have a link to the new ticketing portal as well as the HMIS website. And so please let us know if you see a link anywhere in a form, data entry paper form, or a report request form, or something of that sort. You can go ahead and let us know so we can update that. Let's see here. So, HMS website. Okay, so there was one question, a really excellent question. Will someone read the question from Beth?
Yeah, I will. It says, will the fact that the new database is shared between the three COCs mean that the Dwell system is no longer needed? Seems like it might be redundant now.
So the Dwell database, for, for anyone who's not familiar with it, the Dwell warehouse currently takes data from all three COCs, and that data can be usable given approvals from a governing body at Dwell, and the governing body is sort of staffed, but there's individuals from Pima County, Balance of State, as well as Maricopa County on that who approve data requests. So what Dwell does is a warehouse that takes data from all three of COCs, and then that data may or may not be shared given approvals from each individual COC. So the Dwell system will still be relevant. The way that it might be useful to think about it is that Dwell is sort of like is the reporting backbone and warehouse of the actual software Green River. So it's sort of like it's a very loose analogy, but sort of like SAP. So when we do data entry into community services, as well front-end data entry, where you can, look at client records, pull it up, create new entry exits, and so forth. But if you're doing some more intricate reporting, you'll log into SAP, which is a separate tab and a separate portal, and that's where you'll do a host of other reporting. Dwell is similar in the way that the Green River, that software would be the front-end user software, but that Dwell would still be that reporting backbone, that warehouse. Now, Green River is the current operator of that Dwell warehouse. So we just end up having the same operator for the Dwell warehouse as well as the front end implementation. And so Dwell is still relevant because when people think about Dwell, I think a lot they think about the reporting and they think of a warehouse. But Dwell is really more of a program than anything else. And they happen to use a warehouse that's run by Green River. So Dwell as a program will still be relevant because the purpose of Dwell is to increase care coordination, to help go ahead and connect different sources of data. The biggest initiative that Dwell as a program is working on is working to connect the data from the three COCs with data from Access. And that has been a long time coming, but as you can imagine, there's all sorts of rules and regulations, locally, statewide, federally, especially HIPAA, that makes it very difficult to get that connection in any warehouse. So when I think about Dwell, I think about Dwell as a program. And so with the transition to its new vendor, that is still relevant because that program is still working to connect COC data with Access data, and eventually, hopefully, with Justice data and other data sets as well. So the warehouse wouldn't be exclusive to just the three COCs working together. It'd be pulling in at other points that are really important. The second thing that Dwell as a program is really meant to support with is to provide an avenue for non-homeless service agencies to access data on their clients. So if I'm working at a health organization, my mission is not to serve homeless individuals. It is to serve clients who are needing healthcare. That is not an agency that is approved for data entry or access in HMIS. I believe in any continuums, but definitely not Maricopa or Balance Estate. Dwell would be an access for a read-only access to be able to view that client, say, hey, I have a client who has a health concern. I want to see if they are currently somewhere else in the system, in a homeless shelter or something of that sort. So I know we work with a lot of health plans that are interested in Dwell, the program, because that program will allow various other entities who are not homeless service providers be able to sort of view client records and understand where their clients might be and connect with clients and so forth. That Dwell program will not allow clients to go ahead and actually do any data entry. It's purely for visibility. And it's really, really cool program because, the COC side has a lot, maybe a lot is not the right word, but the COC side has funding for homeless, individuals experiencing homelessness. And the medical side has all this other money as well. So I think both systems need or are looking for resources from their system, but it's really hard to get those systems to communicate, which is why the Dwell program is really important. So the transition would make some of this easier. Right now, each COC has to sort of individually send their data to the warehouse, the reporting warehouse, just to even give Dwell the opportunity to potentially use it or release it one way or the other. Because just because the data is in warehouse doesn't mean it was approved for usage by all three COCs as well as the Dwell governing body. So it's a very long answer, and it's probably longer than in particular, possibly Beth, but there may be a lot of people who are not familiar with Dwell itself, so I thought I would go on and on for a bit. But the way I think about it, the Dwell program is still very important, important for coordinating care across different sectors like health and homelessness. And it will also be important for allowing other types of organizations to have access and view client records without actually entering data or being able to see secure information like client notes in the HMIS database. So I could talk about this stuff all day long. So like I said, we'll talk about the vendor transition more and more and more. There is a ton of open questions, so I really do appreciate them. For the questions I could not answer very thoroughly, I wish I could, but I've had all these same questions, so I would really, really do appreciate the engagement there. I thought I saw another question somewhere. Let's see here. Okay.
There's a question asking, uh, well, Tracy, just let everybody know that the link to our new webpage is in the actual HMIS database, for the system announcements. And then Stephanie asks, will clients be able to access their files as well?
I don't know. I don't know that that is a functionality that the new software currently has that would allow for like a client to log in to a portal and then access their own files and or account. That was actually one of the questions that we explored. So there was a committee that did review. They received So the process was all three COCs, so all three COC boards approved an RFP, a request for proposal for new vendors for the state of Arizona. And there was 4 or 5 vendors that applied. And one of the things in that request for proposal was an ability for clients to be able to view their own profiles and log in and see that data. None of the vendors really had that functionality. So as of this time, I don't believe on day one that would be a functionality available to clients. That being said, Green River is a particularly responsive vendor, and they actually make custom updates for other communities they work with. So that is something that I imagine they would be able to work with us on, but that wouldn't be a day one functionality, I believe. I can double check that as well. Uh,
I don't see any more questions. Oops, one more. Um, when will this changeover happen?
so the plan for changeover would be early fall for Maricopa County. It would be late fall for Balance of State, and then Pima County would be very late fall or early winter. Um, those are the tentative timelines. Yeah, so uh, it could be an exciting 6 months.
Go ahead and conclude. Again, thank you all for joining us today, and your feedback is important. So please complete the survey at the end of the webinar. And if your questions weren't answered here, go ahead and submit a ticket to our help desk.